Vasudeva. So we have seen that the substances which are to be used as a medicine should have the capacity, the power to produce a disturbance in the functioning of the vital force. So unless a substance has this power, that substance cannot be useful as a remedy. That is because we have seen in our previous classes that our vital force will decide, will accept certain substances without any resistance, which we call foods, because they strengthen the vital force and they replenish the vital force. So such substances, which we call foods, like we know the milk or wheat or rice or cereals, or whatever we take as foods, they are. So whenever you take these substances, the food substances, the vital force will not make any resistance unless you take it, even the foods, of course, if you take indiscriminately when it is not required, that is different. But normally. But all the other substances which are not foods, when they are taken into the constitution, into the body, the vital force makes a resistance and tries and puts all the effort to eliminate this throughout from the constitution. This is according to the law of nature. So in the food what we take every day, there are some non-foods also which we take along with the foods because of their medicinal properties, not as a food. So for example, salt. When you are hungry, you cannot eat salt as a food. Salt is not a food substance, it is a poison in the sense that it can produce a disturbance. But why you are taking salt is taken in certain limited quantity along with the food, not only for taste but also because of its medicinal property. That is what we have to know. Salt or all the spices, all these things. So therefore, when we know this, we can discriminate which is food, which is non-food or poison. So any other substances than foods, they produce a disturbance. A disturbance means they create a spur, a force which can interrupt the normal functioning of the vital force. And whenever there is such an interruption or disturbance in the functioning of the vital force, then the vital force produces a reaction. That is what is called the secondary action. That is what we have seen. The secondary action is a reaction of the vital force. Reaction towards the primary action of the substance. That is what we have discussed yesterday. So the substance produces its primary action in the constitution, and as a reaction towards the primary action, the secondary action is produced as a reaction by the vital force. So these are the two types of actions. One is the action of the substance, and another is the action of the vital force. These two we have to always remember. And not only to the substance but also in the nature, and we observe what are the secondary actions. So these secondary actions, this reaction towards the primary actions, that we find with those substances. So our vital force, how it makes the secondary action, even with the conditions of the climate and also with everything, because so that can be possible only by the living organism. Otherwise, the organism which is not having life cannot produce a secondary action. So, for example, if you keep a piece of iron in the sun, so the piece of iron gets heated because of the sunlight. So as long as there is sunlight, it goes on getting heated and heated. But when you stand in the sun, you also get the heat of the sun. Your body receives the heat of the sun. So when the heat of the sun is increasing, what happens? Your vital force makes a secondary action. Therefore it produces sweat. Why this sweat is produced is to regulate the effect of the heat of the sun and to protect your body from the increasing heat. Similarly, when it is very cold outside, if you keep a metallic piece or some chair or something, it will be more and more cool, but there will be no reaction. But when you stand yourself or sit there when it is very cool, then your body receives the primary action, and to this primary action it starts a secondary action, its reaction. That means your body is heated up from inside, because there is a mechanism of regulating the heat in your body. So when it is cool outside, you can feel your body warm. When it is warm outside, you can feel your body cool. So this is because of the secondary action that is produced by your vital force. So see how the vital force is always alert, always ready to produce its secondary action against all such conditions which can produce you discomfort and problem. So it may be by any substance, it is the same. So this faculty of producing secondary action is most important of the vital force. That we have to understand very clearly. So in this phenomenon of producing the secondary action, the vital force creates certain symptoms. This we have studied, the symptoms. So symptoms are very important for us. Because it is only through the symptoms, by studying the totality of these symptoms only, that we are enabled to know what is happening in the constitution, what is the sort of reaction of the vital force in the constitution. So symptoms are so important. If in any person the symptoms are not produced at all, because symptoms, as I told you, symptoms are produced only when there is a secondary action. When there is no secondary action, when there are no symptoms, that means there is no secondary action. When there is no secondary action, that indicates That is an indication that the vital force lost its power. Only when the vital force loses its power, because what is the power of vital force? The vital force always makes an effort to keep your constitution in proper functioning and keep it protected from other influences. That is the functioning of vital force. The vital force keeps you alive. It keeps you in good condition. These are all the functions of vital force. So therefore, for this purpose, it produces a reaction to eliminate all the factors that block the functioning of vital force. But when the vital force loses its strength, then it can no more produce any secondary action because it has lost its power. So when once vital force lost this power to produce secondary action, you don't find any symptoms. When you find any person in this stage, that means he is almost reaching the end of his life. He got incurable. So what you call cure in its true sense is impossible when the vital force loses its power totally. So whether a person, if you observe a person, a patient, how can you determine whether the patient is in a curable condition or an incurable condition? So this is the criteria. This is the criteria. If the vital force can produce a secondary action, then it is still possible that the person can be cured, at least to a certain extent, if not completely. But if no symptoms are produced and only the suffering is localized somewhere in some part of the body, in some organ, only the suffering is localized without any other symptoms, that means the vital force lost all its power anymore to protect, and that means the effect of the disease is completely localized in the physical plane and the vital force lost its power. So that means it is an indication that the person is in the incurable condition. So then you cannot make any effort to cure. You cannot say that you can cure him. Even if you cut the organ and eliminate, but you have not eliminated the disease. That is what you see in the treatment of, so-called treatment of the cancers and all these things. What we call cancer or these types of diseases, that is a stage where the vital force lost all its power, because the effect of the disease got localized in the physical tissue. So you may eliminate the tissue, you may eliminate the part, you can amputate, you can cut that part, but cutting and taking away the part is not a solution, because you have eliminated the affected part, but you cannot eliminate the cause, the disease, from the constitution. This is where we have to clearly understand.
Suffering is not a symptom?
Suffering is not a symptom. Because suffering, only for example, you got a cancer in a particular part, which is established in the physical tissue in an organ, then the only thing is the pain, that's all, but you have no symptoms. The symptoms.
Pain is also symptom.
Pain is only a localized symptom, but only one. But what type of pain, how can you decide the medicine, the remedy? Because if you cannot find any sort of other reactions and other things. Only thing is that part which is causing this, that's all. But what are the aggravation, there is always in the same situation. If you ask him, when do you feel the pain more, when do you less, neither more nor less nor any other conditions. There is no amelioration, no aggravation, and no mental symptoms, nothing else except only this. This is localized.
Possible to find some cancer without symptoms. Just growing many years, no pain, no mental symptoms, no emotional symptoms. But someone goes to the diet without symptoms.
But the symptoms, as long as there are symptoms, still it will not be localized. When once it is localized on the physical plane in any organ, by that time the symptoms disappear. Because what Hahnemann has explained is that what we call a disease on the physical body, generally we call this as a disease, but this is, as I told you, this is the result of the disease. So before this, it takes a long time, some years, before this is established on the physical body. So before this is established, this is brought on the physical plane, that before that time you have symptoms on the mental plane and the vital plane and all these planes, you have symptoms. But if you have ignored this, if you could not identify this until it is located on the physical plane, because you take a biopsy and then you make a test and then you can confirm that it is a cancer, but that is the end stage.
But how homeopathy can find such a disease? The patient without complaints will not come.
At the end, this end stage you mean, without symptoms and only cancer. Yes, then it is only palliation, even in homeopathy. You cannot say I can cure the person, because there is no secondary action anymore in the vital force. So you cannot produce a secondary action. So you cannot claim that you can cure. You can only make a palliation.
Do you then call a tumor is not a symptom anymore, right?
Tumor? No, it's not the...
Tumor, for example, is not a symptom anymore.
So tumor is not symptom, but still, for example, if a person is having tumor, so if the person having the tumor still have the symptoms, for example, fear, very much fear, and some conditions of amelioration and aggravation. So if you can find still any sort of symptom on the mental plane or in the emotion or in the vital plane, so if you can still find symptoms, then it is possible that the person can be cured and the tumor can also be cured at the end.
But these third emotions, which you can call symptoms, will always be there even if you have a terminal cancer, right? There will always be something.
No, but there when it is completely established only in the physical plane, without any other symptoms, because
How can you have no symptoms anymore?
yes, there are. That is why you see in such cases where in the same example, when the cancer is localized completely on the physical plane, then the only thing is suffering. He suffers and he feels sad about his suffering. But before this, when you observe the character of the person, then the other things, for example, are the other modalities and others, his nature of his peculiar nature and all these things, they are no more there. So if you have any of this still there, then it is still possible that he can be cured. There are some cases, that means it is not completely disappeared. It is established already on the physical tissue, but still on the other planes there is still the possibility. So if you find this, so for example, there are many cases. There is a case of gangrene, for example. In the case of gangrene, because gangrene, you don't know gangrene? So there are many examples. The person got this on the particular part, for example, the toe. So this person, it is a real big ulcer and suffering is there, but still the symptoms, mental symptoms and other symptoms are there. So what is generally considered when there is a gangrene, the treatment to cut, to eliminate this part.
Also in diabetes, not
In diabetes also. So when you cut this there and then afterwards it can appear, remain. So gradually amputation is done step by step. That is what is there. So in this person, when you find the mental symptoms still, so there are many examples. So recently there was such an example. There is a teacher who was diabetic since 20 years like that, and then because of this chronic diabetes, the peripheral circulation of blood was not not proper, so therefore he lost the sensation. So it happened that he got an injury from some iron substance, so he got septic condition, and then very quickly it got infected into the leg, and then it was so infected that there is a hole went deep to the bone, and then many worms started to form, and it was giving a very bad smell and all these things. And he was always in the allopathic treatment, so he went to the big hospital. They examined this and then they decided to cut the leg because that is the course of action. They decided to amputate the leg because they could not control this with any even powerful medicines. So they decided to do this. But his wife, she phoned us. This is the condition. What should I do? Because she is always in homeopathic way. So then we told her, you immediately bring him to us. So the morning they have fixed the time to cut the leg, and this night she took a taxi and took her husband and she came to us. And then we have seen, so we could observe that still these modalities and symptoms, mental symptoms are still there with him. So we said now it is quite possible still. So we started the treatment. So when we have given a remedy, within 2 days all the worms, about 300 of the worms came out, completely thrown out. We have given Sabadilla. And then all the worms were thrown out. Before that they tried to do something that the worms, no, you can see the worms from the hole but they were not coming out. But after giving the remedy, all the worms were thrown out. And after 3 days of this, all the worms came out, and then we have given, basing on the symptoms, totality symptoms, we have given sulfur to this patient. And miraculously, within 10 days, the smell is gone and it started again, the flesh and everything forming, and within 1.5 months, the whole was completely healed.
In which locality?
We have given only in 200. Sulfur in 200. With 3 doses of sulfur, it's completely came to normal. So we asked them to show go and show this to the hospital where they wanted to amputate. They could not believe this. So this is possible because still the symptoms are there in the person. If all the symptoms disappear, then we can't do anything. Because when all the symptoms disappear, how can you decide a remedy with similarity? Yeah, you cut it, but when you cut it, you keep cutting up and coming up, and you can cut only up to afterwards you can cut the person completely. You could not cure him. It will not stop because The person is not cured, you are only eliminating the infected organ, that's all. You have not taken out the cause. When the cause is not properly eliminated,
Possible to do somehow such a...
it was cured. This is what I am telling. This person is cured, he is alive still, he is alive, he is normal.
I mean, this maybe some patient without any symptoms with such a pathology, it's possible to cure him?
Without symptoms. Without symptoms you cannot. That is what, if there are no symptoms, that means his vital force has lost all the power.
But perhaps you tell all the relatives of this man they pray for him and it can...
Yes, they can pray for him, but still you can't be sure, because it is all what we have to know is about his vital force. It all depends upon the power of the vital force. That is important.
But it can be improved from the higher level, this vital force power.
From the higher level means spiritual healing, you mean? Yes, that may be possible, but only if you have such a powerful spiritual healer, not everybody.
Even 1,000 of relatives all the time you...
No, all the relatives, it is not just enough if all the relatives just pray for him. It should be a spiritual healing, a very powerful spiritual healer, then it is possible. There are some cases like that, but not in every case with every so-called.
Patient also must be a believer.
But the patient should have that faith. If the patient has no faith in the person, in such a healing, you can't do anything in such spiritual healing.
Jesus cured like that.
Yes, only masters can do that, but not everybody.
With the hands.
Yes. So therefore, the symptoms are very important. The secondary action, there should be a secondary action that is very important. Now we have to understand more about the symptoms. How many types of symptoms that we have to classify? The symptoms are classified. So, which symptoms are more important, which are less important? This we have to clearly understand. What is the classification of these symptoms? So when you know this classification of symptoms, then you can make an order of priority of the symptoms. When you study a remedy also, you have to follow the same order. And when you study a patient to be treated also, you follow the same order of symptoms. So that is important. So the symptoms, what is the class? There is one type of classification which is more, which is non-specific. There is another type of classification which is more specific. So both the classifications I will explain. The classification of symptoms. There are subjective symptoms and objective symptoms, two types of symptoms. Subjective and objective symptoms. So subjective symptoms are those which can be explained only by the patient from his experience. The doctor, the physician cannot make out these symptoms unless the patient explains from how he feels. That is subjective symptom. For example, the patient says, I am suffering from headache. So the patient has to explain you that he is suffering from headache and what type of headache and everything. The headache cannot be measured like that or by the physician. So all such pains And also he says, I am not feeling well. So what is this? This is a subjective symptom. The patient feels, I feel very much depressed, I am not feeling well. I feel sorrowful. So these are all subjective symptoms which you cannot perceive by yourself. You cannot measure, you cannot perceive by the appearance or by any instruments or by any investigations. You cannot do that. Only the patient has to express and explain what he feels. So these are the subjective symptoms. When the person hates somebody, the hatred, how can you know this? Unless, so the patient, or also the patient says, I feel discomfort in my heart. So how can you know that? You may take some ECG, electrocardiogram. Then electrocardiogram may show you everything normal. Still the patient says, I feel some discomfort here. Then how can you, if you say that, oh, the ECG is showing everything normal, so you have nothing. You should not, because it is subjective symptom. Many times it happens. The patient says, I am suffering, and the doctor says, everything is normal in the investigation, so you have no disease and no suffering. But the patient is, we have to give importance to how the patient feels. That is important. So that is why in the homeopathic approach, you may take into consideration all the reports of the investigation, but only secondary. The first importance is what the patient says. That is what Hahnemann says. You must allow the patient to express his feelings, his experiences and everything. So importance is given to what the patient says. If you only, when the patient comes to you, if you prescribe some investigations and tests and send the patient away, and the patient should come back with all the reports, and you look at the reports, and if there is something wrong in the reports, according to that, if you just prescribe the medicine, that makes no sense. The first importance is to the patient. Subjective symptoms are very important. So subjective symptoms cannot be determined. You cannot determine what is happening by the external means or external observation. The subjective symptoms, they explain you more. The patient feels that, it says that, for example, when it is full moon, I feel very depressed. So how can you, without, this is subjective symptom very clearly. You cannot say that it is absurd.
Yeah, exactly. When you go to a clinic, they say, go to a psychiatrist.
Yeah. When you don't know that this is a symptom, then you send the patient to a psychiatrist. And he gives some psychopharmac medicine. It makes no sense. To make it worse. So the subjective symptoms, these are more important. So in the subjective symptoms, more are of the mind. How he feels. For example, if it is warm for everybody, then a particular person may feel chill and cold. So this is subjective symptom. It is the experience of the patient. So that is a symptom. When it is warm, the climate is warm, we feel it's warm, the patient may feel chilly. Then if the patient explains like this, the doctor say, oh, you are thinking too much. It is not possible. It is possible. It is the feeling of the patient. That is a symptom. So these are all the subjective symptoms. There are many subjective symptoms which first you have to take into consideration. You have to make note of all these what are explained by the patient. So that is why you must, that is why Hahnemann says in the very beginning in his Organon that you must be an observer without any prejudice, an unprejudiced observer. That is what Hahnemann says. Without any prejudice, a preoccupation about the patient. You should not entertain. You should not entertain any of your opinion about the patient. You must be like a clean slate, a clean paper. Let the patient explain. That is important. That is what is lacking generally in the hospitals. The doctor, in homeopathy also, the doctors don't care for this. They only say, I know everything. If the patient wants to explain, are you the doctor or I am the doctor? So such doctor can never cure the person. It is very funny. You want to cure the person and you don't want to listen to the person. How funny it is. So you want to cure only this disease, not the person. That is where the mistake is. That is what Hahnemann says. That you must cure the person, not the disease. Treat the person, not the disease. So the subjective symptoms are very important. And then objective symptoms. Objective symptoms, the symptoms which you can see, you can feel by yourself, you can observe. These are the objective symptoms. For example, if the patient is having, he says, I am having fever. So you can touch and you can feel. You can measure, you can feel, you can use all these methods. So you can, from externally. Similarly, if the person says, I am suffering from warts or pimples, you can see very clearly. Furuncles, all these things. Or if the patient says, I am having swelling in the throat, so you can ask him to open, and with the torch you can see, you can look. So these are all the objective symptoms. And some persons, while reporting about their suffering, they weep. This also you can find. Some person while reporting starts weeping. How are you? If you ask, start weeping, and then. So you can, this is objective. The weeping is objective, but the cause is subjective. Again, you must discriminate. You can note down the person, the patient is, while reporting the symptoms, is weeping. Crying. So whatever you can observe externally, these are objective. And also some patients have some different types of mannerisms. That also you can observe by yourself. While speaking to you, some persons constantly keeps moving the leg. You cannot make the person sit without moving the legs. The more the person is anxious, the more the leg, he without even his knowledge starts moving.
A couple of weeks ago, I had a patient who always did this.
Yes.
Every 2 sentences.
Yes. Many times like that. Like this, there are the externally perceptible symptoms. These are the objective symptoms. So this is one type of classification.
But this sort of thing is dependent on the remedy? Is there a
Yes.
to the remedy?
Yes.
Or a person who moves his foot all the time is
Yes.
not the same remedy as a person who licks his lips all the
Yes,
time?
it's different.
It's linked. It's linked.
This is linked. For example, the person who always has to move some part of the body. Even when you ask the person to sit without moving in meditation or something, but still in the army also, they say that attention, so he should not move. But while he has to be like that also, he will be like this, moving. I have seen some persons, because when I went to the army camp in training, some persons, the commander says, don't move, but this fellow, he can't be without moving. He was punished for that, but again he does the same. Involuntary, it is involuntary.
What did you give him?
Now that time I was a student. But that is Zinkham Metallicum very clearly. Yeah. A Zinkham Metallic person always keeps moving like that.
And the lips, what would that be?
That can be Agaricus. Yes. Yes, mostly the type of fidgety in Agaricus mostly, if it is on the facial, like this.
Oh, that is Agaricus.
Mostly in Agaricus. So these are the symptoms which you can observe by looking at the person. You can make note of these symptoms. So these are objective symptoms. And there is another classification of the symptoms. Another classification which is more subtle classification of the symptoms. The general symptoms. General symptoms, these are very important. What are the general symptoms? These general symptoms are those symptoms which belong to the whole of the body, but not to particularly to any part. For example, the patient says, I am feeling weak. So the feeling weakness is not to any particular part, but he is feeling weak. He says, I am feeling weak, I am not able to get up, or I feel very weak. So this is a general symptom. It is not localized at any particular part of the body.
If a patient comes with different kinds of problems and he also says he is weak, would you start with the weakness or with the other problems? Or does that depend on the problem?
No, first of all we have to make the note of all this totality, and then we have to decide. That is why Hahnemann said that without making a case sheet with the totality of the symptoms, you cannot proceed for the treatment, because you have to select a remedy, and the basis for selection is the totality of symptoms.
So it depends on the others.
Yes. So what are the general symptoms and what are the other symptoms, that we have to understand more clearly. General symptoms are first to be observed. So weakness, and the patient says, I am tired. So this tiresomeness, the patient may say that I am always tired. So always tired, that means that is a general symptom, but not in any particular part of the body. It is not the tiresomeness in head or in hand, so it is the total constitution. That is the general symptom. So that is one of the important things, the general symptom. Similarly, the patient, for example, the patient says, I feel not good when it is a cool climate. That is general symptom. The climatic conditions. So whether he feels comfortable in cool climate and warm climate, so all these conditions, for example, he says when it is warm, when it is bright sun, then I cannot work, I feel very weak and all this. So if any of these descriptions are general. So generals, you cannot decide the treatment only basing on this. So he says, for example, a patient says, every day I get headache. So headache is, of course, it is localized, but every day he gets headache. But this doesn't give any information, is not enough. And then the second group is the particular symptoms. Particular symptoms. So particular symptoms, they are particularly in that part. Suppose he says, my hand is very much paining and I cannot lift my hand, and the pain in my hand is increasing when it is cold. So like this, he speaks about his hand only. So but the specific, the problem is localized for him. So for him it is important. So a particular reference to any part of the body is made by the patient. That is the particular symptom. So what you call all the pains and all these things, which the patient, because the patient comes to you and patient gives an importance only to those sufferings which are acute. For him it is important. Afterwards we have to make out the nature of the pain and all the conditions of the pain, we have to make out. But from the patient point of view, the immediate acute suffering is the only important for the patient. So therefore all the pains and all these things, these are what are reported, they come under particular symptoms. So we have to note the general symptoms, we have to note the particular symptoms, both. We have to make a synthesis. And then most important are the mental symptoms. The mental symptoms means the various types of distortions from the normal functioning of mind. These are the mental symptoms. So his impressions, he says, for example, the person says, I don't feel well when there are so many people here. So that is a mental symptom, for example. And another person says, oh, I cannot be alone. When I am alone, when there is nobody, then I don't feel well. I want the company of people. So all this belong to the mind. And likes and dislikes, for example. So somebody likes very much to have sweet things, and somebody likes very saltish, somebody likes very sour, So likes and dislikes, these are all various types of manifestations on the mental level. And many other things which we are going to study. Somebody suspects every person. So some person is always suspicious of other persons. So that is also a distortion. Because always he has fear and suspicion. And some person is always depressed. So depression. This is a mental symptom. Loss of memory, for example, that is another mental symptom. So these are all examples for the mental symptoms. They are the distortions at the level of mind. This is what is called the mental symptoms. So these are very important for our consideration. So that is why to determine or to diagnose means in the homeopathic meaning, diagnosis. In the homeopathic approach, diagnosis means not the name of the disease, as I told you. For a homeopath, it makes no sense if you say this person is diabetic. That makes no sense, because you cannot say, you are not expected to select a remedy for diabetes. So diagnosis means taking the totality of the symptoms of the person and to find a similar remedy. So how can you express the diagnosis in homeopathy? For example, you say that yes, this person is a person of aurum metallicum, that is the diagnosis. That means from the totality of symptoms you found a similarity with the symptoms that can be produced by aurum metallicum. So therefore you said, what is his disease? Aurum metallicum, that is the diagnosis. Whether he is diabetic, whether he is sclerosis, it makes no difference for us. So this diagnosis means this is, so in this mental symptoms are very important. And then the peculiar symptoms, there are also peculiar symptoms. Peculiar symptoms are very specific for in some cases. Peculiar symptoms, for example, the antiperistaltic constipation of Naksvanka. It is only the Naksvanka person who has to find some method to divert his mind to avoid constipation, as I told you yesterday. That is only Naksvanka. That is what is called a peculiar symptom. Some person you find, he cannot bear if there is something on the chest or on this area, and at the same time he cannot bear if his head is exposed. So he covers the head and he wants to keep this open. This is a peculiar symptom which belongs to the remedy lachesis.
And in lachesis, what about it's the same?
Yes. But this is very particular for that. So these are peculiar symptoms. Another example, there are many examples, only to explain you what is a peculiar symptom I am giving these examples. Another example is a child, when you lift the child is very, very good. But when you bring the child down, then the child starts weeping. No, it is borax. In borax, it is only in borax where the downward movement makes the person feels as if all his inner organs are pulled out. That is sensation in borax.
So we never go in an elevator.
They will never go in the elevator.
Just to go up, no?
Just to go up, they can go up, but they don't come down in the elevator. In the airplane, when the airplane is landing, then it is difficult for these persons. While coming down, downward movement is terrible. That is the peculiar symptom, particularly of the remedy borax. So these are the peculiar symptoms. And then the modalities. Modalities means the conditions of aggravation and amelioration. The conditions of aggravation and amelioration. For example, the patient says that I am suffering from headache. So it is not enough for us if you just, it is not an information. The patient says, the patient came to you for treatment for headache. So if you want to give a remedy for headache, you will always make a mistake. So you must know what is the modality, under which conditions your headache is aggravated. So he says, when it is hot, then my headache is increasing. When it is cool, then my headache is ameliorated. So that is what is called the modality. Similarly, if the patient says, if I make something tight on my head, then I feel comfortable, then this is a modality. And in some person says, when I wake up from sleep, then I am suffering from terrible headache. So, it is aggravated after waking up from sleep. And Rustax also. Rustax. Lachesis is typical, sleeps into aggravation. Lachesis. So aggravation and ameliorations, that is what is called modalities. So modalities is that group of symptoms.
Modalities is a group of symptoms?
Yes, modalities is all these what you call aggravation and amelioration, all these conditions are called modalities. This is general symptoms is one group, particular symptoms is another group, mental symptoms is another group, and then peculiar symptoms another group, modalities. So like this you have to know.
How you can find this is a distortion on the physical or on the vital level? If you find mental symptoms, it's probably that you have to cure on the mental level and have to do such.
No, the totality.
No, the totality. When you have to take all these symptoms what are given by the patient and what you have observed. First of all, what the patient explains you, and then what you have observed in him as abnormalities.
How can you discriminate this is physical distortion or vital distortion? Because for mental symptoms it's I can understand, but other these complaints can also be on physical level. How patient complains on the vital?
Oh yes, then this I will explain you. Suppose the patient says he has no appetite. Is it physical? Huh? It is vital. and the patient says, I cannot see properly, it is blurring, my vision is blurring. That is on the vital level. When the patient says, I am constantly some sound I am listening in my ears.
This is depends on the senses.
A sensation, but sensation, it is about the sensory or the dysfunction of the or the wrong functioning of the sensory organs.
Only or something.
Yes,
But appetite,
appetite, and for example, the patient feels, when some patient says, if I want to take food, I feel nausea. So what is this? So these are, you have the symptoms, after mental symptoms, you have also these symptoms, and these explain you on the vital level. Because all the vital functions, your appetite, digestion, the circulation, and the inhalation, exhalation, circulation of blood, these are all vital functions. So any sort of distortion in these vital functions is the manifestation of the symptoms on the vital plane.
why not look for the vital symptoms?
Because they can come under modalities. Here itself you can find this.
Modalities are always physical? They're always
Modalities not physical. Modalities are about because for example this headache. So headache is not a modality, but increase aggravation and amelioration of headache is a modality. So it is not
Better or
physical.
worse?
Okay,
Better
it's
or
a
worse?
subgroup, in fact, no? No, what I kind of get it, but not totally. When I say I'm scared if I'm in the dark.
Yes.
If I'm in the sun. I'm scared if I'm in the sun.
That is here,
Yeah, okay.
on the mental.
So what if I say if the sun shines strong, I'm scared?
That's not a modality.
That's
You
not-
have to say,
Modality.
no, you have to say when I go inside, it's better.
Yes,
When I cover my eyes, I feel better.
when you say that I feel better when I go into shade, then it is a modality.
It's better or worse? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that, yeah.
So when we have to decide, when we have to select a remedy, to decide a remedy for the patient, because we have to take the symptoms into consideration. As we have to always remember that symptoms are produced due to the secondary action of the vital force. This we should not forget. Symptoms are produced due to the secondary action of the vital force. So here, therefore, now the symptoms, because the symptoms are produced due to the secondary action of the vital force, they can be produced, they will be produced by the secondary action either in reaction to the factors which are disturbing, which we call the disease factors, some factor which is disturbing the vital force naturally. That is what is called the natural disease. That is what yesterday I told you. And also, if you induce or administer a substance which can disturb the function of the vital force, then also the vital force starts a secondary action. So this secondary action which is induced due to the administering of a substance is called artificial disease. So you have natural disease and artificial disease. Yes. They are giving a reminder to us. So natural disease, so it is also due to various factors, but which happens due to such disturbances either from your inner consciousness or from other influences. So whatever it may be, so if that factors which disturb the vital force, which induce the secondary action, that is natural disease. And artificial disease is that one which we produce by administering a remedy, a substance. So whatever medicine which we use produces artificial disease. That is where we have to remember.
So you could call approving an artificial disease.
Yes, it was proved.
No, if somebody gets the wrong remedy and he goes through all the symptoms of this remedy,
That is a secondary action produced.
and that could be an artificial.
Yeah, if you constantly do it, then it is proved. That is why we don't use the medicine like food. Medicine is used only when it is required and in required intensity, in the required direction, with required intensity. That is what we are going to study. So medicine is, when any medicine, any sort of medicinal substance, because it is not a food. If you take medicines like food, then you are lost. So medicine, any sort of medicine, it produces invariably the artificial disease.
If someone have a professional disease, it's like artificial or it's natural? No, perhaps someone make all the time suvarna plasma or something like this, and it's little parts come to the body. It's like artificial or natural?
If he got a problem because some part of it has gone into him. So it is artificial. Yeah.
What about potentizing food then? Could you potentize food?
You can potentize food, you can potentize rice, you can potentize honey, but it doesn't give any pathology.
No. But would it help to cure the lack of food in the world?
No, not like that. Only those substances which are non-foods, which are poisons, can be potentized to be used as medicine, but these foods are not medicines.
No love for the people who are suffering from hunger.
No.
And when you leave vitamine
On va discuter de ça.
Food supplements.
artificial.
Artificial, yes, that they produce their artificial disease, definitely. Yes. Yes, because what happens when you supply these things, because for example, yesterday I told you were not here, the vitamins for example, when you use the vitamins as supplement, but what happens is, then your body loses the capacity to absorb the vitamins from the food, once for all.
But if they are not in the food, then you cannot miss it.
How can you say that the food is completely devoid of vitamins? If it is so, then everybody should have deficiency. There, if the same food is taken by everybody, only some persons are deficient, not others. So that is not logical. If everyone who is taking this same food is deficient, but not everyone is deficient, some persons only, and some persons are more deficient, some are less deficient, some are not deficient. No? That means the constitution of the person lost the capacity to absorb the available vitamin from the substances that are taken as food. That is the fact.
If the food is good, if it's not good, you cannot absorb.
If it is not good, don't take the wrong food. Why should you take? Why should you? Now, why should you take the food which is not?
Some people are lazy, they eat bad food.
Yeah, that is.
Take the bad
Yes, that is what I am telling. You should not take. You should not be lazy because food is an important aspect in your life. If you are lazy to take spoiled food or preserved food devoid of vitamins, that is your mistake. But if you take that food and then you take vitamins, that makes no sense. That is natural. That is not natural.
And what about ashwagandha or Vitacart and
That is not supply of vitamins. That is only making your vital force to bring it into to be able to absorb. That is not supply of vitamins.
that's for all the plants?
No, that is not. That is all these natural things. They are only to help your vital force to get normalized, to be able to work properly. That is the only thing.
And your body doesn't come lazy with that?
No,
They push.
they are like food only, but not like vitamins. We have to. This is we have to, because now in the modern society, in the present times, most of the people are convinced that you can take vitamins and these things, calcium, vitamin, this and this and this, because with this logic, but this is not a correct logic, but produces secondary effects.
They are convinced they have to take.
Yeah.
That's a mental symptom.
They are convinced, yes.
We must understand it's not true.
No.
Yeah, now can't everybody thinks that now we have to take.
That is why in the modern society, in your daily life, you are taking more and more medicines and other things than food, because you have no place for food. You have more and more you are taking. Yes.
What you said yesterday, that the liver, the pancreas, no more is able to work properly
Yes.
after some time.
After some time they will not, because you are rendering your organs of the body lazy and they do not work anymore. It is just like, for example, when the people have to work for their salary, for remuneration. If you go on giving their money without working, then afterwards if you ask them to work, they will not work. Then you have habituated them to receive money without working. The same thing happens with our body. Okay, so before the another bell is given, we have to go there.